And in that first year, I made about $7,000. I didn't net $7,000. I brought in a total of $7,000 in my new business. Now, there was a part of me that worried that I would always struggle to make more than $7,000 with my coaching business. But I am so grateful now that I didn't allow that income to tell me what was possible. I am so glad that I was more focused on how my business was making me feel and what it was allowing me to create. This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schuessler. It's just you and me today. So as I'm recording this, I am 47 years old, and as you're listening, I am already at least 48 years old, which is super exciting. I made it. So happy birthday to me, and Happy New Year to all of us. I want to talk about something important I learned over 2019 about you and me, and about what helps us succeed in business. I got to work with a lot of Rebel therapists this year, people trained as therapists and healers who are taking their work beyond the therapy room. And I learned a lot partly because I got something wrong. So this past August of 2019, I was trying to figure out and express some things about who my work is great for and who it's not so great for. And I started saying something. I started saying that to be right for my program, you have to want to make at least $20,000 in the next year from your new business beyond the therapy room. So not from what you've already been doing, but you need to want to make $20K with your new business in the next year. Now, I said this because I had noticed that once the Rebel therapists in my programs get to that point where they're able to create $20,000 with their new business, things start getting easier. That first $20,000 comes with a huge learning curve, and it's really the very hardest $20K that you're ever going to make in your new business. From there, you can often double and triple your income, sometimes even pretty quickly. Once you get there, you really understand your niche, you have tested your offer, you've begun to build an audience, you've got a business that people are resonating with, and your business really exists. So I thought, let's make that a primary goal, to make $20K in the next year and then to grow from there. And I figured that by speaking about that first $20K, I would draw in people who are really motivated and I would filter out people who were ambivalent. So I wrote an email to my list about it, and I talked about it a little bit in a podcast episode, and I talked about it over Instagram. I was so excited. I thought I had figured something out. And now there was a part of me that felt a little bit off about this. It didn't feel as aligned as what I'd been putting out there before. I felt a little bit of pause that it might be too surfacey, that it might not speak to the depth of what Rebel therapists are looking to create. And it turns out that that pause was right. This new message did not resonate with most of my current clients, even the ones who had really achieved financial success. And it didn't draw people in. My new emphasis on making your first $20K as a primary goal of the program just fell like a lead balloon. So is $20K a reasonable goal? Absolutely. And can many Rebel therapists get there in a year? Totally. And is making $20,000 a sign that then they can turn around and make more money? Yes, it is. But there are some reasons why, as I now look back on it, there's some reasons why it didn't work to talk about this as a primary goal. So for one thing, I was reminded that the $20,000 goal doesn't line up with the reasons that people really want to create this new business. Your big why is not primarily about money. And we talk about each person's big why in my programs. In the very beginning, we start out by exploring and articulating each person's why. And I hear things like creativity, fun. I want my business to be fun. Work-life balance, a desire to work in new ways, a desire to help more people, wanting to have control over their time, wanting location freedom, wanting to get to work with people from all over the world. And yes, money goals are mentioned, but it's never at the top of the list. And then again, months into the process, I often hear from Rebel therapists that when they return to their bigger why, they get re-energized and they're able to accomplish more. And again, I rarely hear money as the reason that they're doing this, whether or not they're already making money. When you're in touch with your reasons for doing this work, what I hear is that you're not actually thinking about the money as much. You're not anxious about the money. And strangely enough, at that point, often the money flows in. Another big reason why this $20,000 thing that I put out there fell flat is that for most Rebel therapists, it doesn't bring a helpful mindset. When they're focusing primarily on the money, it tends to put people in a position of grasping, of comparison, or of scarcity. It's this feeling of like, until I hit that number, I'm not doing it right. And that is not the mindset we need. The mindset we need in order to build a Rebel business is one of curiosity, creativity, and experimentation. So I'll get into that a little bit and how that works, what that looks like. One exercise we have in my program is that we zoom out and we look at your business 2 to 5 years from now and imagine how you might like to be earning your money, what combination of services you believe might be a good fit. And we come up with potential pricing for those services, how many people you're going to be serving, who you'll be serving, how much time these offers are going to require of you, how much income you'd like each of those offers to bring in. And we really have fun with these future businesses. And we play with the numbers, we play with the possibilities, knowing that you can change them at any time. And you're very likely to change them before 2 to 5 years from now. We look at that future business model as a possibility that we can get excited and curious about. It's not set in stone. Then we zoom way into the current moment. And in the current moment, you begin to work on your pilot offer. And this is something you can create quickly. You can offer to your right fit people and you can get feedback on quickly. And this zooming out and then zooming in gives us the best of both worlds. It helps you in getting started today and being open to future income that might be double or triple or 10 times what you're going to create right now. And then as people step into actually creating these pilot offers and putting them out there, mindset becomes even more important. Let's look at 2 scenarios. In scenario 1, you sell your pilot offer to as many people as you were hoping to, and you make the kind of money you were hoping to make with this first time around. You're off and you're building, and you see this clear line between the pilot offer that you just put out there and that future business model that you were dreaming into. And that momentum has already started. You just got external validation for something that used to just exist in your mind. And then after you shared it with the small group and after you shared it with me, it began to exist for real. And now it's bringing in money. And you can see how continuing down this path is going to lead you to a successful and sustainable business that may even become a movement. In this scenario, you can hold on to a mindset of curiosity and experimentation, and you could enjoy that $20,000 goal at the same time. Mindset is really not all that challenging when you're in scenario 1. But now let's look at scenario 2. You put your pilot offer out there into the world and you get crickets. People don't sign up, or way too few people sign up. And what you do at that point, what you do with that information is extremely important. So now you're facing this moment of not having enough people sign up the very first time you offer it, and you are vulnerable. You did not get external validation. You're vulnerable to believing that the reason no one signed up is because you're not really supposed to be doing this, or you're a loser, you don't have what it takes. You're vulnerable to believing that your loved ones who don't understand what the hell you're doing are right, and what you're doing doesn't really make any sense. All of these kinds of thoughts and beliefs. But you do have another mindset option. And maybe you could even think of it as you have an option after you've gone through those thoughts and those feelings. You have another mindset option you could open up to. Your other option is to believe that this was just a first experiment and it didn't work. And that's it. You didn't have all the right ingredients yet to get enough signups. And you don't know why quite yet. You don't know yet if you do have the right offer and you just didn't communicate it in a way that made sense. You don't know whether you just didn't have a big enough audience yet and you do have the right offer and you do have the right way of communicating. You don't know yet whether there's something you need to tweak about the offer itself. And you can decide to believe that your success is inevitable, but you're figuring out how it's going to happen. And that's a great place to start round 2 from. So at this point, if $20,000 was your primary goal, it would be harder to stay in that creative, curious mindset. It would be tempting at that moment to take your ball and go home and to just say, forget it. If what you really needed was $20,000 fast, this didn't do it. And really creating a rebel business isn't the fastest way to $20,000. If what you really need is $20,000, it would be faster to optimize your therapy practice or get a part-time job, or maybe even bring in a roommate. So I tell you these 2 scenarios to help you think about why I kind of got things wrong with emphasizing this 20K. Even though I really love money and I want you to love money and I want you to make money. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of actual people to look at how this can play out. So I want to talk about Kim Restivo-Lang, who I just interviewed in my last episode. So if you haven't heard that, check out that last episode. She is so fun to listen to. We talked about Kim's membership community, which is called the Growing Up Confident Collective for parents. By standard business formulas, she shouldn't have started a membership community yet. Lots of business experts would say you should wait to start a membership community until you have many thousand people on your mailing list. And Kim loves this membership community, and her love of this project is why she's got the energy to continue growing it. You can hear it in her voice when she talks about it, and you can tell it is giving her life more meaning, and it's creating this energy for her and for the parents in her community. She loves creating new stuff every month, and she doesn't love teaching the same stuff over and over again. So this format is just a great fit for her. When she tried an approach that was more conventionally logical, which was an online course, it didn't really work for her. It drained her, and she didn't feel like she was making the kind of impact she wanted to. Now, it was a great experiment, and it got her to the next thing. But as it was in and of itself, it didn't work for her. So if Kim had been primarily focused on making $20,000, she would have been stuck with launching her course over and over again and probably getting burned out on it. So you can hear when you listen how defiant Kim becomes when we talk about this idea that conventional business wisdom would have said it wasn't time to create that community. And it is such a pleasure to hear that. Now, Kim is going to continue to rock her business and grow as much as she wants to because she's got so much energy for what she's doing. She's building an audience who wants what she's offering, and she's comfortable charging money and setting boundaries. Our next example is Annie Schuessler. That's me. I've hit a new high in my income in 2019, and that has happened year over year for several years. There's this magic thing that's happened in that when I focus on creating value and offering what matters to me the most, and when I focused on serving the people who are the most engaged with what I've got to offer, I make more money. In a lot of ways, I've created a new business in 2019. I made a pivot at the end of 2018, so this time last year, where my primary focus shifted to helping therapists create programs beyond the therapy room, this whole thing we're talking about. Up until then, for about the last 10 years, my focus had been on helping therapists fill their therapy practices. So this new aspect of my business, this rebel therapist part of it, made up about 5% of my revenue in 2018. And then I focused on growing it in 2019, and it created about 60% of my income And going forward, it's going to be 100%. In many ways, this could be seen as a risky move if we're looking at things from a finances first point of view. My program to help people build their practices had been growing, and it was bringing in the lion's share of my income. It was how I had worked with all of my previous coaching clients. From the outside, it would seem to make sense to continue to grow that program. And I love so many things about that program, but I felt most drawn to helping people create their businesses beyond the therapy room. So that's where I focused most of my time and energy. And like I just said, the money followed, and I've been able to make more money in 2019 with a relatively new program. All right, let's time travel back 10 years. The first year I ran my coaching business, I put in a lot of work and I carved out a new identity for myself as a business coach for therapists. I created a blog and I wrote a new post every week, and that was when blogs were a really big thing. I did a webinar or two, and this was back when webinars were actually on the phone. And in that first year, I made about $7,000. I didn't net $7,000. I brought in a total of $7,000 in my new business. Now, there was a part of me that worried that I would always struggle to make more than $7,000 with my coaching business. But I am so grateful now that I didn't allow that income to tell me what was possible. I am so glad that I was more focused on how my business was making me feel and what it was allowing me to create. And I'm so glad that for some reason I believed that I'd be able to create something that I hadn't yet created in my coaching business. It's important to say that I had a really successful therapy practice, so that helped to make it possible for me to believe in myself and to pay my bills. As I talk about money not being the primary driver in creating a rebel business, I also want to talk about how important money is to me. For me, money absolutely has to line up, and my business absolutely has to take care of me and my family. I'm the primary breadwinner. I live in San Francisco. We've got 2 kids. I have the privilege of being a homeowner, and I grew up middle class and I'm white, so privilege is always present when I'm talking about money. And I'm the main breadwinner. Although I may have to stop saying that soon because my wife's business is really taking off, which is awesome. But for now, being the primary breadwinner for several years, the money piece has to work out. And I have had moments of fear and stress about how to make that work and whether I was taking too big of risks. But when I follow the value I'm creating and I follow the needs of the clients who are getting the most out of what I really love to offer, it takes me in the right direction. So far, when I follow that, it leads me to growing my audience and growing my income year over year. And perhaps it won't always be a straight line up, and that's okay too. It's okay to experience ebbs and flows. So I'm sharing some of my personal story to say that even though I value money and I want my business to create a robust income, my decisions don't start with money. So you might be asking, okay, that's great. Passion is great. The big why is great, but where does the money come from if these rebel therapists are creating these businesses and they're starting out making $7,000, or they're not just doing it for the money? Or if getting past 20K isn't their primary goal, where's that money coming from? Because you're maybe thinking, I need to make more than $20,000. So often it's coming from their therapy practices or from their full or part-time jobs. Often there's a dance where in the beginning, they're carving out space for these new businesses, carving out perhaps 2 to 5 to maybe even as many as 10 hours a week in order to create this beautiful new business while they're still relying on the income of a full or part-time job or their therapy practice. For some people, they've got no plans to stop practicing therapy, while other people exit out of their therapy practices once their rebel businesses grow. Some people are being supported by a spouse or a partner, but that's not true for the vast majority of the people I work with. Most people I work with are in a position where they need to create income, and while their rebel businesses build, that's coming from their private practice or from their job. Okay, can we talk about you for a few minutes? If you're ready to create your signature program beyond the therapy room that really brings you joy and lines up with your big why, I have created something for you. Let's shave some months or years off your learning curve and get your program to the people who need it this year. I've got a 5-week experience for you. Learn more about it and apply at rebeltherapist.me/create. So here's how this works. We're going to meet over video for weekly 1-hour meetings for 4 weeks. You're going to complete important but reasonably sized chunks of work on your program between those sessions. In week 1, you'll identify your big why, set yourself up with time and energy management practices to help you succeed in this entire project, and you'll learn the overall steps of creating your signature program. In week 2, you'll clarify your niche and learn from examples of Rebel businesses so that you can put together your own unique program. In week 3, you'll choose from lots of format options and begin to craft your pilot offer. In week 4, you'll create an authentic and doable audience building strategy. In week 5, and this is going to be really fun, we've got a special 4-hour graduation and launching workshop. You're going to take everything you've worked on during the previous 5 weeks and take some guided steps to actually launch your program. We start this whole thing in just a few weeks from now in late January of 2020. Learn more and apply at rebeltherapist.me/create. And I can't wait to see you in 2020 with a new interview with an innovative Rebel therapist. All right, I'll see you then.